The raw reality of starting your own business is often made out to be this experience of sunshine and rainbows, especially on the internet. And I have a different story to offer you. Now, this is just my experience. Like all my videos, I'm just speaking from the experience that I've lived through. And I'm not saying that this is absolutely how it has to go for you. In fact, I have plenty of examples of people that I know that have had faster, more, epic success than I've personally experienced. But I want to walk you through sort of what I've been going through, not just in the last few months, but really what it's been like for me over the last 10 years of trying to be self-employed and trying to build my own businesses. Now, my goal is always to keep it raw with you all. And so I want to be straightforward in telling you that I really don't feel very good today. I don't know if I crashed out necessarily, but man, I feel like I've been pushing really hard. And today specifically, I feel burnt out. And so that's kind of why I'm making this video today, right? I just figured this is something that I want to be able to offer people. I have had some successes. I've been, had enough success to be able to do this for as long as I've been doing it. Sorry, while I try to figure out a way to prop this phone up. But I just, I know that the value that people have been getting on my channel recently has predominantly been because I make pretty raw content. Like I'm willing to talk about what I'm going through and the way that I'm going through it. And yeah, I don't feel very good today. And it's, partially because I feel like I've been pushing really hard and not getting a lot of results. I want to go back to the beginning. That's sort of one of my big intentions with this video is to tell you my story. And I want to keep it real with you guys. I want you guys to be on this journey with me. I think about that video a lot that Mr. Beast made when he was like 17 or 18, where he's talking about he has like a few thousand subscribers and he's like 10 years from now, you better have 100,000 subscribers. It's not like I want to set a goal like that. I'll tell you my goals in absolute authentic clarity at the end of this video, but it's not that I'm trying to come at it like that. I just think that people really value stuff like that. I really value stuff like that. The people that I like watching the most on YouTube are the people that are super raw, just telling you what they're going through. And so far I've been pretty good at that. And I think that small business is one of those things that I've really dedicated myself to. Well, it's small right now. Ideally, it'll get bigger in time. But you see a lot of content, especially if you are an entrepreneur, that really it's all about how successful the person is and how successful you could be too if you follow their methodology. I don't know if you should necessarily follow my methodology because I haven't been that successful. But I want to tell you kind of my story, and maybe there's something you can get out of it. So the first time that I really had any inkling of starting my own business, I mean, like many people, I made money shoveling driveways when it snowed. I made money mowing lawns. So there was always that little inkling of entrepreneurial spirit my entire life, right? All the way back to when I was, 9 or 10 years old. I think the first time that I ever actually made money, looking back, probably screw this guy, but my neighbor asked me if when I got home from school in elementary school, I could go let his dog out for a little bit, just for like 20 minutes. He paid me, I believe, 50 cents every time I let his dog out. Now, granted, it was every day. And so it did kind of equate to, some money every month, right? Enough for me to be able to buy candy or whatever it was, have, some money coming in. But, maybe that's what set me up to be somebody who is, sort of prioritized goodwill and set myself up to be exploited. Not that really happened a lot over my career. But, that's where I was at as a young person. I did that kind of thing. Then I started mowing lawns, shoveling driveways. I got into selling things on eBay. I think this is kind of a classic story that most entrepreneurs can relate to, right? You have that desire, to add value in certain ways. You see areas where you can add value, you rise to the occasion. The first real business I ever started, like the first official LLC or whatever it was when I was in college. Maybe I should tell you a little bit more about other entrepreneurial stuff. let's start with that. And then we'll go forward to, there was an illicit period of my life, or maybe I'll make a video about that, in raw detail. But I started selling things on Shopify. So when I was in college, I learned about Shopify. I learned about the whole Amazon FBA thing, and I tried to do both of those things, right? So for me, it was fitness products. I started selling like yoga mats on Shopify. And I didn't make very much money at all. In fact, I don't know if the yoga mats, I probably sold like 1 or 2 yoga mats. The thing that I did find success with to some degree was custom t-shirts. So I sold t-shirts that were related to sort of, like the idea of being an outlaw. So the first Shopify store I ever had was called Outlaw Fitness. And it was literally like like skull and bones type t-shirts, except they were barbells, right? And I did actually sell quite a few of those. Now, in college is where I really found my love of politics. And, I am a leftist. We might talk more about that on this channel. I run a lot of political debates though on TikTok. And so I'm not what you might call like a shutdown type of person. I don't like to shut people down. I don't like to close them out. In fact, frankly, the best conversations I have are with people that are across the political aisle. I mean, in many ways, really far across the political aisle. One of the people that I enjoy conversing with the most is, he is like a really hardcore conservative Christian. What, many people might even call, like a Christo-fascist. I don't know if he would define himself as a Christo-fascist, but the bottom line is that I started selling like politically related workout gear, right? And that actually really found more success than anything I had done up until that point. Now, I then learned about Amazon, right? Amazon FBA, or what is known as fulfilled by Amazon. And it's essentially where you purchase products in bulk, you send them to an Amazon warehouse, and then Amazon fulfills them for you. Now, I didn't really know what I was doing up until this point, right? Everything that I was doing was sort of this shotgun approach of trying to, just make money. It wasn't even like I wanted to add value. And that was really the biggest problem, right? Is that I was so focused on making money, and it was really all about me. It wasn't necessarily that I was, looking to solve a particular problem, or I was looking to genuinely establish a long-term good business. It was just that I wanted to make money. And so when I went into Amazon FBA, it was really through the lens of rose-colored glasses. I just saw these videos, I heard people talking about FBA, and I was like, well, it's on Amazon. Amazon's got the business model, people shop on Amazon, what could go wrong? And so I chose to sell sort of these weightlifting straps. They're straps that like attach to your wrists, and then they there's an actual like long strap. And the reason that I chose those products was because I had used those. I was big into fitness, and my, the deadlifting gear that I liked the most, it was not gloves. It was straps that attached to your wrist, and then you could kind of like wrap the strap around the bar. And so I purchased a load of about 1,000 of those straps, which cost me in total something like $4,000. Now, of course, as promised, the story only gets uglier. So I was really lucky to have a lot of people in my life who were big time supporting me at the time. Like, oh man, you're starting a business. That's so cool. I could never do that. We'll talk more about that comment throughout this video. But probably should have brought some water with me. Hold on, I'm gonna pause this video. H2O, baby, life's nectar. Incredible. I had a buddy at the time who was willing to buy a pair of the weightlifting straps. My girlfriend at the time, her mom, who had nothing to do with fitness, I don't even know if she'd ever set foot in a gym, let alone deadlifted, bought a pair of the weightlifting straps. And I'm like, cool, I'm getting that community support. But I had also sent a couple pairs of the weightlifting straps to bodybuilders that I knew on Instagram, hoping that they might use them and give me some feedback and kind of shout them out on their page. Now, after something like 3 days of one of these guys having a pair of these weightlifting straps, he sends me a message and he's basically like, hey, I tried to deadlift like, half of what I typically try to lift, and the straps just, disintegrated essentially on my wrist. So the actual strap ripped off of the, the wrist cuff part of it. I didn't actually test the straps before I bought them in bulk. Like, I didn't actually really put the samples to the test. I got the samples, they had my logo on them, and I was like, the logo looks phenomenal. Boom, let's make the bulk order. I bought a bunch of garbage ass weightlifting straps, right? Now, the straps are already at Amazon. There's a couple purchases rolling in. Every single person that purchased the straps left a 1-star review. And so all of a sudden I have all of this dead bulk that, it's like, I'm probably not going to be able to sell these anyway. Number one, because I didn't adequately research to make sure that this product was really in a market area where there wasn't that much saturation, or there was a lot of purchasing, but there wasn't a lot of offers, right? And so I was probably getting sales because they looked cool, right? The logo on the straps was cool, but I didn't actually really put the samples to the test. I tried them a couple times, but I wasn't deadlifting like crazy weight all the time. And the couple of times that I tried them, they worked fine for me, but I didn't put them really, really to the test with the samples and, getting people to really put a ton of energy behind these straps before I went out and bought them in bulk. And so now I'm sitting on, thousands of these weightlifting straps. They're barely moving. The ones that are moving are getting me terrible reviews, and they're tanking my account, right? Who is going to purchase a product where the rating is a 1-star? Of course you're not going to buy that product, right? So I lost big. I mean, I lost, like I said, thousands of dollars. I basically destroyed the reputation of that Amazon store. And I more or less gave up. I went back to prioritizing that Shopify store that I had, like trying to come up with, a variety of different designs. But if I really think back, I didn't really commit myself. I think I was so demoralized by that experience that I gave up. I wrote the losses off. And I kind of just, stopped prioritizing, selling any of my products. I don't know why I fully gave up. I think, it was just that I didn't really know what I was doing, right? I didn't really understand that it was persistence that was what was required, right? Truly, really, it was sticking to it, iterating, being willing to swallow a loss and keep on going, keep on moving forward. So now after this, it wasn't, it was another about year and a half before I tried something new. Now, at this point, I was a sophomore in college, and I was struggling financially. I was working as a lifeguard. I'd kind of always worked as a lifeguard as like the primary job that I'd had. And so I was working as a lifeguard at my college pool. And while I was doing this, I was, still watching YouTube videos, trying to learn from people. And, one of the concepts that I learned about was the idea of starting your own agency. So for me, I was okay at social media. I at least understood how to be somewhat reactionary or create content that was engaging, right? To position myself as somebody. I was decently in pretty good shape. I was pretty big, pretty cut. And I got a lot of compliments on that kind of stuff. And I got a lot of people asking me for help just in person, in real life at school. And so I thought that, I was okay at social media. And so when I learned about this concept of, doing social media for businesses, I thought, this is a great idea. This is something that I could really do. And it's a much more straightforward process. There's no upfront cost. You don't have to pay any money. And, you can offer a legitimate service that actually provides some kind of return on investment for businesses, and they'll pay you to do this, and they could potentially pay you a lot of money. And of course, right, I'm watching videos. I had taken a couple courses in this process, right? And of course, people are going to really hype up the business model and glamorize the results that you can get. And I don't want to kind of downplay that. Of course, there are incredible results that you get. But I was kind of wrapped up in that fantasy of the outcome that I could have. And so I started going through the motions of calling small businesses and seeing, like, hey, are you interested in social media? Now, I did get a good amount of traffic, and for me, it was an excellent confidence building activity to cold call. I don't think I've cold called since that business, but we'll get into that. But I started doing the cold calling, and I actually set a lot of meetings. And so I would go to these meetings and I would get some traction, I would get some feedback, and some of the people were legitimately interested, and they would provide me small amounts of money to do work for them. Now, over the summer that year, when I was home from school, I learned about Upwork. So Upwork is a website where you can both post freelancing jobs and find freelancing jobs for yourself. And when I started using Upwork, that's when things really started ramping up for me. So I started getting quite a bit of response from people, right? Quite a bit of interest regarding my services. And it was like, I just had to be able to promise people excellent outcomes. And the amount of money that I was receiving for these contracts, like the promises of these contracts, was more money than I'd ever received in one, sitting. I will, one of the things that I want to come clean about was, I sold, weed for a while, right? I like a little bit of psychedelics here and there too, but that was where, between the time that I was 18 and 20, 18 and 20, I was a weed dealer basically. That was the most amount of money I'd ever seen in my life, right? The income week in, week out from selling, it was like something, I was probably doing like half a pound to a pound a week, and it was a lot of bread. Like I was making big bread. But then signing these contracts years later, signing these contracts for digital marketing, that was like the most amount of money I'd ever seen in one sitting, right? To get on a phone call, hang up the phone, and have somebody pay you, $2,000-$3,000 was like, I was like, okay, I'm set. I've figured it out, right? And so I decided not to go back to school. So the next year, the next year and a half to 2 years, that's when I was really in the dirt doing the digital marketing stuff. I was still going to school part-time, but it was a total distraction. I honestly should not have done that. I should have gone all in on this digital marketing thing. The problem was that I was overpromising, right? I was basically doing full service. Anything that you needed, I could do it. Did I have any idea what I was doing? Fuck no. I was basically making it up. And so I would, make these exorbitant quantities of money in the contracts, but then I would essentially not be able to fulfill the service very effectively. People would get really disappointed, and then they'd leave. And many of them asked for refunds, and so I ended up refunding, lots of money. There's really not much else to say with this business at the time, right? The model was good, the method was good. I could have done more outreach, right? I absolutely could have done more work reaching out to people, which I should have done. And then I should have outsourced every single task, right? Usually what would happen is I would get a job, or I would land a contract for a project. I would do sort of a shit job fulfilling the contract to a degree, and then people would be like, this is not good, you need to do better. And then I would proceed to go pay somebody to do the work. That work would be good. And then that person would be like, all right, I guess we can keep going with this, right? Looking back, what I should have done is I should have been all in on the marketing and sales. I should have just been going out and getting the contracts, and then I should have prioritized building relationships with people that could actually fulfill those contracts. That was my biggest failure. So like I said, I did that for about 2 years, until the stress was just crippling, right? The stress was so crippling. And it was, the reason that I stopped selling weed was because of the fear of the law, right? It was really the fear of being in my parents' house, having all of this weed, and what happens if my house gets raided, right? Are my parents the ones in trouble? What happens if somebody decides that they're fed up with me, or they're angry at me, or they want to screw me over or whatever, and they report me to the police? And so I had a massive amount of stress. And this is actually around the point when I know many of you were on this channel because of that one video I made about 10 years, addicted to weed, right? that was really the point when like the chronic smoking started, right? It was like I smoked because it sort of, I thought at least it was going to help me relax in the moment. Now, of course, the paranoia from weed is way worse, right? And so I was sitting there with this tremendous anxiety and paranoia because of the life that I was living. And ultimately, things came to a T, or what's the term? Things came to a head when a man from my past, who I loved dearly, right? A family friend of mine. Well, not really a family friend. He was one of my ex's dads, but he was a tremendous mentor for me. I mean, he was a huge positive influence for me in my life. Long story short, he found out what I was doing, and he showed up at my job, right, where I was lifeguarding, and he basically just gave it to me like, you're fucking around. Like, you are wasting your potential. You are doing something that is damaging, your future. Now it goes a lot deeper than that, and hey, stick around because clearly I'll just tell you fucking anything about myself. But needless to say, that was jarring for me, and not just that. He called my parents, right? He told me as he was leaving my job, he said, "I'm gonna call your parents and tell them this." And so, me being me, he's driving away. I pick up my phone and I just immediately called my mom and told her everything. I told her exactly what he said. I told her exactly what I'd been doing, and I just came clean about everything. And that was enough for me to stop cold turkey. I just like, what, the stress is crazy. I'd been robbed at gunpoint 2 times, right, in my experience selling weed. And so it's like between the fear of the police, between this man who I really valued so much to come and be like, you've really fallen in my view. That was enough for me to walk away. But back to the digital marketing thing, this was an entirely new type of stress for me. This was a stress of like, I am playing in a ballpark that I do not belong in, right? I am making these promises that I should not be making, right? And I'm taking on these jobs that I'm totally unqualified for. And I'm like scrambling to find people that can actually fulfill it. I'm scrambling to create results for these people. I'm scrambling to fulfill the jobs. And it was so stressful. It was so fucking stressful. And I remember it was like, essentially, I had 2 clients at the time. This was like the winter. I can't remember what year this was, but it was over the winter. I'd also been making money house sitting for people. And I remember I was house sitting for somebody that lived way out in the woods. Their power went out. And so I remember being on my laptop, like using my phone as the little hotspot, being on my laptop and sitting in this house freezing. I'm like covered in blankets. I'm like freezing, right, on my laptop. And I get this message that from one of these clients that I'd had at the time, basically telling me that everything that I'd done for them for the last few months was a joke. It was a joke. Like, they're like, you barely fulfilled this. He used verbatim. He said, "This is a joke." And I remember in the moment, like this, like everything just kind of collapsed for me, where I was like, you know what? Fuck all of this. I'm finished. I'm out. The next few months were some of the most peaceful months of my life. I felt so at peace. That spring, I went to the Virgin Islands. Like I was still kind of in school. Like I was in school part-time. And so I signed up for one of those, school trips. And by the way, if you can do that, typically, I mean, at least this was the case for me at the school that I went to. It was pretty cheap because it's like a group trip. And I remember like sitting on the side of this hill, like looking out over the sea in the Caribbean. And I was like, man, like being able to be at ease is way more valuable to me. And so over the next few months, I really kind of got into making social media content. I was just documenting my journey with fitness. But I had a lot of people from my school that were, commenting on my posts, asking me questions, saying like, can you help me with this? And I made a video on social media, which I forget exactly what I was talking about, but I was next to the ocean and I was sitting there, just talking to the camera. And it was just kind of this raw, authentic, like, if you want to create fitness results for yourself, you have to be willing to change. And that video blew up. Well, for me, it blew up. It got a few thousand views, which for me was a huge number of people at the time. But I realized, like, you know, you really could make money doing anything, right? It just comes down to the work ethic. It comes down to having a solid offer. And so in that moment, I was like, well, if I could make money doing anything, what do I love? Well, I love fitness. I didn't really know I didn't know if I had some specialty. I mean, of course, I knew about macros. Basically, I knew that you had to train consistently. Um, the the big thing that I was a massive proponent of at the time was sleep, and so it was like one of the things that I saw regularly was a lot of guys that were doing all the right things. It seemed to me like, but when they weren't getting enough sleep, they would not grow nearly to the degree that you really could, right, size wise. And so that was a big thing that I was really a big proponent of, was getting plenty of sleep. In fact, more sleep than is even recommended, upwards of 9-10 hours per night. And that was sort of the secret that I swore by, was getting a lot of sleep. But so I was like, you know what, I am going to make fitness content and I'm going to train people. I don't know if I'm going to sell a course. I don't know if I'm just going to train people one-on-one. But I was like, I set the intention, I am going to make money through fitness training. And long story short, that's what I did for the next 7 years. Just up until about last year, that's how I made most of my income, was through fitness training. I grew my accounts. I realized that one-on-one conversation is really what I can provide the most value to people with. And most of it wasn't fitness. Most of it was mindset. It was self-love. It was how do you release from stress? How do you prioritize setting your intentions and then letting everything else go to really let that intention be the main thing that you focus on? But to this day, that is what I have had the most consistent success with. It's not what I made the most money doing, although I will say that I was charging people quite a lot of money, right, towards the end of my fitness career, was thousands of dollars per month to work with me. And it was mostly because of having these conversations. Thousands of dollars a month, that's not accurate. I'll give you my exact pricing structure. It was essentially, I wanted to work with somebody for 6 months. It was $2,500 up front, and that covered you for 3 months, and then it was $500 a month for the last 3 months. So in total, what is that? About $4,000, I think, if my math is correct, for 6 months, which it's a lot of money. I mean, for me, that's a lot of money, right? And so I did moderately well doing that. Now there were stresses with that, and if I were to give you the exact playbook, it's like, well, number one, clearly be in shape, right? Sex appeal sells. I mean, that's really what I was posting pictures of my body. I was posting videos of myself shirtless talking, and getting a lot of traction. A lot of people were just, there to gander, of course, but I got a lot of interest that I then, had conversations with people over DMs, asked them about their goals, asked them if they wanted to do a free session with me talking, right? And then on that conversational call, I asked them, do you want to do this? Do you want to work with me long term? We talk about the price. Of course, objections come up. You work through the objections if you can. I was not, I've been hard sold into some business programs and stuff where it's like I totally should not have signed up. I ended up paying way more money than I wanted to. And of course, ethically for me, it wasn't like I wasn't willing to sell somebody who should not have spent the money. Now, if you're watching this page, like, Zach, you sold me and I should not have spent the money, definitely let me know. And I'd love to, coach you for free at this point, if I can, to make up for that, because I want to maintain a reputation as somebody who is, good, positive, and ethical. That will always be my number one priority. But just to kind of share with you the actual methodology that I used to get clients and build that fitness business, it wasn't rocket science, right? It was just, I had the physique. I followed sound principles. I genuinely wanted to help people. And then I made content, and the people that interacted with my content, I used conversational DMs to try to get them on a phone call and then sell them into my longer term program. And I got great results for people, I think, for the most part. Now, so I did that for years, for about 7 years, I think, if that number is correct. I think it is correct. Yeah, and so why did I stop? I don't know if I never necessarily stopped, right? I totally am still willing to train people. I just don't really go out and post stuff anymore. I have gone all in on this new business that I'm doing with my girlfriend. It's called Design Co. It's a productized graphic design service. We might be getting rid of the productized thing, and that's just because of where we're at right now, which we might be getting into the reality of where I'm at currently, which is that things feel really challenging, just to be perfectly honest with you. And I am more than open to feedback. And in fact, I'd appreciate feedback, especially from those of you watching that have been successful in business. I would love an audit, man. I would love you guys to audit what I'm doing and tell me sort of, what do you see that could be better? What do you think I should change? Offering me your stories, I would love to hear them. But so that's what we do. We offer brand design, not just graphics, but the entirety of brand direction. So coming up with the themes, the typography, the color palette, but also the entire ethos of the branding when it's presented to the public. So we can do your website. We can of course do all of your visuals, but we will also design the art direction for your brand, right? What does your brand feel like? What is it like to interact with your brand? That goes through every piece of your brand, not just the visuals, but your customer service, right? Your messaging, right? The values that your brand demonstrates to the public and how your product shows those values being demonstrated. But we've had this idea and have been actively trying to pursue this for almost a year at this point. Almost a year, a little bit less than a year, probably about 10 months. And it's been challenging, right? What I would say is, at first, when I learned about the concept of productization, for me it was like, oh, this just solves every piece of the negotiating process, right? Now nobody has to guess what your pricing is. They don't have to guess what you're able to do. It's clear, I think, on my website exactly what we're able to do. The price is clear. It's right there. You don't have to think about the price. And so in my head, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I could literally just send infinite messages, and a few people are going to be interested in having a productized, design organization on your tool belt. Anything we do unlimited. So anything you need, you let us know. It's in a very simple queue. It's like we add you to our little software. It's very, very simple. You basically get this single conveyor belt queue. You can add as many projects as you want. You can reorganize your conveyor belt. So you tell us what's the priority, what should we be working on right now. And then our turnaround time is 48 hours or less for most things, right? You get an update every 24 hours, but if it's something like a full-fledged website, of course it's going to take, a week or so, or however long, based on the complexity of the site. But we do anything. Now, the methodology that I've been using was, number one, I think the first mistake that we made was we didn't niche down. My thinking was like, well, if somebody wants, a design team, right, we can design for any company. It doesn't matter what the industry is. We can design for it, right? We will understand your brand story. We will learn a little bit about your industry, and we can design something that creates actionable traction, no matter what it is. And so my thinking was like, we don't need to niche down. We don't need to do anything like that. I think that was a mistake, right? And so now we've since tried to start to niche down into the AI sector, right? My partner and I are big time users of AI, for better or worse. And we are big believers that this is the future, right? AI is going to be in every sector. AI is really the future of human technology. We can have another conversation about that another day, because I do have plenty of concerns, but I also think that it's phenomenal. And I think that if we as humanity can figure out how to socially engineer our society such that your life is not, your value as a person is not based on work, right? My belief is that AI will take over everything. There is no job, there is no offer that you as a person have that AI will ultimately not be able to do better. And so your life will not be defined by work, or it should not be defined by work. it should be defined by passion and creativity, but we need to create a society that, facilitates that. That goes into things like UBI, various elements of the welfare state. I'm a big proponent of the welfare state. We can, debate that, but it's going to have to happen, right? AI will take everything, right? And so if we don't want to experience mass unemployment, we have to change. But the bottom line is, we started kind of niching down into that industry. So I think that's a positive for us, right? On top of that, I think that we could also be prioritizing making content. I've been doing a lot of outreach, and I think that's sort of where this video came from, was just that for the last however many months, I have been working essentially a full-time job and not being paid for it. And it's getting to the point where the burnout is real. Like I am feeling the sense that I'm smashing my head against the wall and getting absolutely nowhere. So I think I could be leveraging myself more effectively. I could be prioritizing content, which really demonstrates the skill that we have as designers. I could prioritize sending people real valuable audits. So I could be prioritizing, like, going through their website, going through their social media, figuring out ways that we could, say to them, look, the brand positioning is just not there, or the website could be better XYZ reason, and here's how you could actually convert. Here's how you could really create a brand presence that creates customer loyalty, right? Audience loyalty. But coming full circle, right? I know y'all have been like, what's the fucking point of this long ass rant video? Coming full circle, I see so much like really oversimplified stuff on the internet of like, starting a business is the key to creating the best possible life for yourself. You will never have freedom if you don't have your own business. Now, granted, there are many things that I've done wrong in my career, right? I've made many mistakes. I've deliberately chosen, essentially due to fear or laziness or whatever it is, not to learn from many of my mistakes. But I also want people to understand that this requires so much tenacity, right? This requires such a high degree of resilience. And so if there's anything that I have, it's resilience, right? If there's anything that I am, it is resourceful. It is able to survive in incredibly stressful situations, right? Running out of money, running out of runway, rejection after rejection after rejection. I have a buddy who he's always talking about starting a business, and he's got like this really lofty financial goal. He's like, I ultimately want to have $50 million in the bank, right? And he's always coming up with these business ideas, and he's like, and he'll kind of like halfway start a business. He'll like write up a business plan, and he'll like talk about how great it is and like what a great idea it is and all this stuff. There was a point over the last couple years where he was unemployed for almost an entire year. And he was, spending that time, really diligently trying to find work. And he ultimately did get a job, and I'm happy for him. But it was throughout that experience that I said to him, well, like, now's the time. Like, start a business. Like, go out and actually do your thing. And he consistently said to me, no, I need something. I need a way to actually like make money now. And it's that kind of mentality of like, I'm going to take this dream that I have and put it on the back burner because I'm afraid that I'm not going to have the resources. First and foremost, when he told me, how much he had saved in the bank, it was like more money than I've even ever seen in my life, right? And so for me, it was like, you're not missing anything other than faith. Like literally all you are missing is just the willingness to try. That's it. You're afraid that you're going to lose, but I am sitting here in front of you as somebody who has never really made it very big, right? Telling you that all it requires is tenacity, right? Of course you have to pay the bills, right? But I've been able to figure that out, right? Even if not abundantly at all. Even with a tremendous degree of struggle, but people tell me regularly, they're like, I envy the freedom that you seem to have. I envy the willingness that you seem to have to create and the vehicle that you seem to have to create. And I'm like, there's no other vehicle than just a guy who is not willing to be mistreated, right? There is no other vehicle than a person who simply has chosen a path and is unwilling to stop going down that path. That's it. I'm just not able to quit. I don't know how to quit. The idea of giving up is worse than being homeless to me. That's the bottom line is I just can't stop. But I've trained that. It's taken me a decade to train that sense of, I know that I am capable. I am unwilling to stop, right? I will pivot. I am so open to learning. I am addicted to iterating, but I can't stop. And it's like, I know that's going to pay off, right? Even the days that I wake up and I'm like, I'm so fucked. I look at my bank account, I'm like, I'm so fucked. The scary truth is that I've been here before multiple times and I made it and I figured it out. And I could have done better, right? Like I could have stuck to those other businesses that I started. I could have prioritized like pivoting those things, but I moved on because I was meant to move on, right? I learned what I needed to learn. And now I'm learning that, I could have been even more consistent. I could have been even more tenacious, more passionate, more addicted to creating success for myself. That's the biggest mistake, right? That I only went 70%. I didn't go 100%. And so part of the reason I'm making this video is just to be honest that like, yeah, I'm struggling right now, right? Materially, but it's all been worth it. It's all been so worth it. Because the person that I've become from this adventure is somebody that my younger self would be proud of. And I know you have that too. And so this video was for both of us, right? I don't know if I have much else. That's my story. Thanks for watching. Peace, much love, namaste. If you like this video, hit that follow button or the subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you know my videos come out. I am committed to this YouTube thing. Appreciate you being here. Take it easy. Bye.